Welcome to another episode of the Financial Armor Show. My name is Jose Rodriguez, investment advisor at Cooper Financial Investments, and your host for today. As always, I want to introduce my amazing co-host Tony Shore. How you doing, Tony?
I'm doing good. I don't know if about amazing. I don't know if I quite deserve amazing, but I'm here and I'm a co-host and I'm excited to be here, Jose. Great to be here with you. It's going to be a great show. Thanks for having me on your show today. And I hope Brad and his family are doing okay, Mr. Cooper.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of things are just going great over here. It's such a blessing. Lindsay's is going to, I want to say, in the next 3 weeks to 4 weeks, she's gonna have a baby. Lorelai's coming. Don't know
Nice.
exactly when. My guess is on the 1st. That's what
Okay.
I put a couple of dollars on that.
Sure. Yeah.
And we have Shelly's doing great. I think she has her last appointment with Mayo Clinic on Thursday.
Wow.
Her last appointment with a regular appointment. After that point, she only has to do, I think, one a year.
Yeah, that's
And
amazing.
and this Thursday also we're doing another event, a Top Golf event,
Wow.
which Keith is coming down. Keith Gangle is coming down
Oh,
for that. I'm going to have the privilege of picking him up from the airport and driving him
yeah.
down to Tucson.
Yeah.
So
Seen
it's
now
great.
Keith Gangle for our listeners and viewers who haven't maybe seen him on the past shows, but he's a senior portfolio manager for Gradient Investments, and he actually manages the Core Select Fund there, and they have over $6 billion under management. Gradient
Hmm.
Investments does, and one of their most successful in the past couple of years has been the Core Select portfolio. So I think it's great you're bringing him in to meet with some of your clients. And for our listeners out there, we'll be having Keith and some other portfolio managers on the show to talk about where things are at in the future. But that's great, Jose.
Yeah.
It sounds like you guys have a lot going on there. So,
Yeah, excited.
wow, I bet. Congratulations on everything that's going on there to everybody. And you also have a great show lined up for us today, though,
We
and
sure do.
I'm excited to get into this. Where do you want to start?
Well, the way that the topic for today kind of came up was I was reading this article from U.S. News that talks about the biggest regrets the retirees have,
Mm,
and it's really interesting when I read some of these articles because yeah, it's interesting to read someone else's perspective, but since Brad and I see this on a day-to-day basis, we talk to retirees on a daily basis. We have our own perspective, right? And so it was
sure,
interesting to compare some of these regrets that people express and also compare them to what we see on a day-to-day basis.
sure.
But one of the things that was just so crazy for me to read on this article is that apparently that in 2023 there was a consumer sentiment tracker from Lincoln Financial Group that says more than 60% of retirees said they would go back and do things differently when it comes to planning
Wow,
for retirement.
wow.
So the way that I interpret that was there is 60% of retirees out there are regretful and just are not happy with the way things are, and there's things that could have done differently. And I thought that well, let's do an educational show, talk about these regrets and make sure that we prevent them, right? And so one
Right.
of the things that 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 pretty much summarizes the big picture is people just underestimate a lot of things.
Sure.
They underestimate what retirement would actually look like when it comes to cost, life in general, and just a lot of the realities that people don't really think about.
Yeah.
Um,
I know I already say I'm not retired yet, and I wish I'd done things differently to plan for retirement. And I'm not even there yet, right? I wish
right.
my 21-year-old daughter, she's 21 and she has a Roth IRA that she
Good.
contributes to already.
Good.
I mean,
Good.
that's huge.
Yeah.
I think, but it makes me mad because I'm like, man, if I had done that when I was 21, I'd be set right now, right? I mean,
Right.
yeah, I didn't start until much later. And that's why I encourage my kids, to watch this show and work with financial advisors and start contributing to plans early on,
Mhm.
because then you won't be one of the 60% that have all these regrets once you hit retirement. But yeah, saving more
Mhm.
is probably the big one, right?
Right, well, that's one of the bigger ones that I did not save enough.
Right.
Right, and
Yeah.
that's usually a tricky part, because people don't really have a they can't really conceptualize how much is enough, right?
Right.
Um, which also ties into having a financial advisor that helps you contextualize what that even looks like for each
Right.
person, which is different. But
Somebody to do the math and remind you of costs. Like you said, a lot of people aren't aware of what they're going to need in retirement. And it's
mhm,
because they don't calculate certain things like inflation, healthcare, stuff like
right,
that. Right.
right, and that's one of the things that people underestimate: healthcare cost, inflation, the they actually lose the ability to contribute into retirement accounts, because sometimes people have still a little bit of excess money they would like to save, but they don't lose a tax advantage of some of these retirement accounts.
Sure.
So one of the things that people might not know is that once you stop working, you lose the ability to contribute to 401ks, Roth IRAs, and IRAs, just traditional IRAs. So, the reason I bring that up is because people have come up to me and said, "Hey, I have this little extra money, and I really like this Roth IRA because it's tax free. So, can I contribute to it? Put a little money there." And I'm sorry, but the IRS doesn't allow you to do that after after you stop working and you don't have any earned income.
Yeah. You have to have earned income. That's the rule,
Exactly,
right? That's what you said
exactly.
just now. That's the key, isn't it? Earned income.
That according to the tax code, that is
Sure.
exactly the wording.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, this is all of these things are just and estate planning. One of the things that one of the biggest regrets that I see people have, and also as part of the article, uh, just make sure that you have a trust in place or a plan of what would happen if you happen to pass away. Where do you want your assets to go? And
Right.
so they give you as much control of your assets, even if you're not alive, right?
Sure.
So
Makes sense.
exactly,
Yeah,
and
you want to plan, and you don't want to leave your loved ones in a bad situation. But again, people don't often figure that into their retirement plans and what they're going to need to do.
right, and another one that just kind of ties into everything as well is, and it to me it seems like such a no brainer, but also I've made the mistake of sometimes the obvious is not obvious for everyone else, but
Right.
but to just having the proper investments. It sounds so simple, well to me, but
Sure.
uh, it is, and we like to talk about it also in a mountain of life, right? There's a mountain of life, and as you go through that mountain, you start out here at the bottom of the mountain, you're going up and you're contributing to your investments, you building that plan, and then
And
you
your
reach the
whole
peak.
goal that whole time is to get to the top, right?
Right, and you're the whole goal throughout while you're growing there, it's that you're growing your assets, you're getting
Yeah.
that rate of return, you're growing it, right? And then once you reach the top, something happens. You you retire, one, that's the thing that happens, and then you start going down the mountain, which means that you're taking money out of your assets, right?
But that's the
And
part people don't plan for is the trip back down. A lot
exactly.
of people who climb Mount Everest don't make it, and it's not the trip up. They
Mhm.
make it to the top because they've planned extensively to do that,
Mhm.
but they don't have the foresight, "Hey, you have to get back down again. Do you have a plan to get back down?" Right?
Exactly. And what happens though is during that time frame is that people keep the same investments, keep the same investment plan throughout this lifetime, but the the way the investment should be set up is different depending on where you are on that mountain,
Right.
right?
If you're
And
trying to
it's
reach the top, it's one thing. You have to have the growth. If you're spending, you have to then plan for that. And that's what
right.
people fail to plan for or understand, isn't it? That's the part.
Yeah, exactly. That's
And
so
that's why you have a job, isn't it?
exactly. I mean,
That's what you do for your clients.
right. And sometimes unfortunate to see some of these people that have these really some people have a riskier portfolio than I do. I'm in my 20s. And
Yeah.
they might be in their 60s and 70s, right?
Yeah.
And although we say it all the time, uh it is important to make money on your money. But when you're at reach that peak of the mountain and you're on your way down, right? It is very important to make sure you don't run out of money.
Yeah.
That is the
It's
end
huge.
goal, right? And as I was reading through all of these regrets, they could have all been prevented by having a financial advisor,
Planning.
planning with and make sure you have a good fiduciary financial advisor, uh, because not only do we invest the money properly according to where you are in your life and your goals and objectives, but one of the things that people don't really think about, I think they don't really think about, is the perspective that we bring. And although I might be in my 20s, I talk to retirees on a daily basis, and I know what happens. I see it all the time. And I say this all the time as well with even my clients and everybody. I learn more from my clients than they learn from me as far as financial planning and investments. So I gain a lot of wisdom from talking with my clients. And what we bring when it comes to planning for retirement with our clients, we bring the perspective. Hey, you watch out for this, and that it doesn't necessarily have to do with your day to day investing. For example, something that we talk about a lot is Social Security planning. Some people just think, oh, I'm just going to push it off as much as I can until year 70 and take that money then, because just the amount is just bigger on paper, right? But what people might not be aware of is it's not that black and white. There is different ways to file. And how does this new income tie into your overall plan? Sometimes bigger is just not better, right? And even though that has nothing to do with investments, it affects your retirement. So anything, and this is how we see retirement planning. Everything that affects your retirement, doesn't matter if it's directly uh, tied into the market, we watch out for. And you're muted.
And that's hugely important
Right.
because obviously having money in the market, you want the growth when people are younger, and you start working with people at a lot of various ages,
Hmm.
but you have to have a plan in place. And that reversal that happens at the top of the mountain, you have to do a complete 180. It's the complete reversal way of thinking, because right now in my working years, I've just been taking my income and creating a savings. And
Hmm.
that's pretty simple. Most people have that down, or at least understand they should be doing it. And it's not necessarily the most difficult thing to do. But what
Hmm.
you're saying is then when you hit the peak, you've got to do the exact opposite and take your savings and create an income. And that's a tricky thing.
Right. Right. Because the end goal is take those savings, get an income, but also get the income for as long as possible to make sure you don't outlive the assets you've built up over the years.
Yeah.
Um, and the not running out of money also during that time can be tricky because sometimes people, and I think Brad says this as well, that people have uh, bigger hearts than brains.
Yep.
so
Yep.
so some people are not don't know how to say no to some things. Oh, I think it's really good to help your family if you can afford it and if you
Right.
can do it. But
Family
sometimes
and
people.
friends
Mhm.
can hit you up, and sometimes before you help your kids, you need to help yourself, like on the airplane, right?
Exactly,
When
exactly,
the
it's the
when the
same thing.
oxygen mask drops
Right?
down, they always tell you, put your mask on first, then help your kids. It's just
Exactly.
like our instinct is help my child, but financially, you have to help yourself first, or you're not going to be there 10 years from now when your child
Mhm.
does need you. You're going to have to, yeah,
You're gonna get in their way of
yeah,
making their own, financial plan because they're too busy taking care
yes,
of you because you mismanage the money, right?
right.
Uh, and another thing that is a kind of a difficult because that's a very difficult conversation to have.
It's tough.
It's a serious conversation, and another one that ties into a difficult conversation to have with clients that leads to a regret later is sometimes people are too stubborn on their health. Like, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm
Yeah.
great." But
I don't need to go to the doctor.
yeah, exactly, things like that. And especially I think it's more common in guys than
Oh,
than girls,
for
but
sure. Yeah, I'm not asking for directions. I don't need to go to the
right?
doctor.
Oh
I'm
my gosh.
fine. Oh, that's just a small cut. It'll be fine.
Or when I go to Walmart and I can't find something, I refuse to ask a worker there, and even though I'm
Uh-huh.
sure it could have saved me 30 minutes. Now I get it. I get it. I've been
Yeah,
there. I'm there.
yeah,
But what what people need is to have someone else, an advisor that is
right.
willing to have that tough conversation to bring them down to reality. Because one of the things is people take too long to downsize. And sometimes they have
Hmm,
too big of a house or two houses, one somewhere else, and it's just they've come to an age where it's just become too much for maintenance as far as them cutting the yard, cutting the grass, right, or fixing things here and there. And sometimes when you get up to a certain point in your life, you can't do all these things yourself, or and which leads to you having to hire somebody, which costs more money. So that's another tough conversation I tend to have with some of those a little bit stubborn, more stubborn clients, which
right.
I'm sure someone's going to have with you and me,
Yes,
because
both of
nobody,
us. Yeah, yeah,
it's going to happen. It's going to
yeah.
happen.
Yeah, but people, you're right, downsizing is something that or regret that people have once they're in retirement. Like, "Why didn't we do this sooner?"
Hmm.
You can let it wait too long. My dad, waited too long to
Mm,
downsize, until he's just, he was unable to do the work out on the farm. He wanted to live there as
mm,
long as possible, and he should have moved into an apartment or assisted living 3 years before he did.
right.
And I think it's somewhat of a regret, so.
And what ended up happening with the home?
Now we're renting it out. He's in
Mm,
assisted living. I finally got him off the farm,
mm,
but he was
good.
just falling too much and unable to do it, and he finally, I was finally able to convince him, but, I mean, he was stubborn. It was hard.
Right.
But I know he regrets not he put, it was a big stress on me. I'm an only child, so I had to drive clear down there
Right.
every week and, help him, and so, yeah, I mean, I really regret it, but he also now
Hmm.
regrets it,
Right.
staying
Right.
on the farm. I wanted him to be as happy for as long as possible,
Right. Of course.
but at some point the tide, it turned there. He hit a wall, and it was making him more miserable and physically
Right.
not good for him to be there. So,
Right. And but he happened to he was lucky to have you, to be able to take care of some of these things.
yeah,
And some people don't have that privilege, and
right.
that's why especially those people that don't have the privilege of having people to help them out. It's even more important for us to step in and uh, help them out with to realize that, hey, this moment might be coming. We should probably start considering downsizing. How are you feeling? All these uh, conversations that have nothing to do with investments, but they're part of your life, and these are things that have to be brought up in conversation, to prevent a regret like the one, uh, or a mistake that people might make in the future.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, and if people are thinking about retirement, they need to, even if they're not, they should be. It's never too late to start with a financial plan
Hmm.
and have a retirement plan in place. How can our listeners out there get a hold of you, Jose, to talk about this?
They can give us a call, 888-390-5277, or go on our website, www www.cooperfinancial.com, and you
Yep.
can schedule a value-based discussion is what we call it. Is just the first appointment where you get to know us, and as well, and we get to know you, and that is the first step towards financial planning for us.
Yeah. Yeah. And if they want, that number is also 888-390-5277. Again, set up that consultation. There, you're offering a no charge, no obligation consultation. It's 888-390-5277. And they can even go to our show page, which is financialarmorshow.com. And this is a great topic. Is there anything else you want to add before we go today, Jose?
I think that pretty much does it for me.
All right. Well, great show. And it is important to understand um, how not to end up with all these regrets once you hit retirement. And now is the time to start planning for that. Once again, great show today. Thanks for having me on the show, Jose. And listeners, that does it for today's episode of the Financial Armor Show with our host, Jose Rodriguez.